Good morning. Quick run through the disclaimers. We can read those at our own leisure. Very quickly, just like to thank Reed Corporate, Bell Direct for putting on the event and for having us present this year, and for all of the investors that come through to this conference every year and support us by their attendance. So for those with the short attention span, the highlights. We've got a new rare earth project, first drill holes in, great grades. We've got an exploration program that's really aggressive planned for the coming year. We're exposed to that wonderful strategic end of the market, which is your rare earths. It's central to a lot of the new clean technology, wind turbines, electric vehicles. We're a small company, small market cap, highly leveraged to the exploration success that we've kicked off, and a dedicated management team with a really attractive capital structure. So a little bit of the corporate snapshot. $11 million market cap, so it's a micro cap company. And we'll come back to that and allude to some of Hedley's comments earlier as well. Management team, 2 geologists and an accountant to try and temper the exuberance of the geologists to get out in the field and spend money at a rapid rate. And then probably the key thing to take off the graph is every time we see those spikes in the share price over the last 6 months, it's when we release information in regards to our rare earth project at Carloning. Got the graph. Okay. The rare earths, a very quick market synopsis of what the rare earths are and why we're there. They're clean energy, so your dysprosium and terbium, neodymium and praseodymium. They're essential for the permanent magnets, and they are the ones that are really critical in the wind turbines and EV motors. And the enthusiastic demand that we're seeing in the market for this is really seeing the clean energy technologies focusing on these 4 key rare earth elements, and they take up about 91% of the value of rare earth elements across the industrial spectrum. So those 4 are the value. Why rare earths and why is it a hot topic? Well, it's the supply chain transparency that people cannot get by sourcing their rare earths through China. And they're also looking for that diversity of supply chain and being able to go through other trusted sources. And being able to get that supply chain transparency on the ESG front is something we can do exceptionally well out of Australia. The global demand just for the neodymium as we're sitting at the moment is projected to double, if not triple, in the next decade. And it's that hard to predict how quickly it's going to grow because there are so many uses where the markets are just expanding with quite a bit of volatility. Don't mind the banner at the front falling down. Okay, so how do we end up with the rare earths project? Those that you were here last year heard us talking about our gold projects. And again, to go back to Hedley's comment, he showed very clearly that the junior micro cap and especially gold explorers were getting very little reward for their efforts on the exploration front. So we were going out as Codrus Minerals, doing our exploration, being diligent, returning good results, and we're seeing our share price tail off. As a shareholder, seeing the share price tail off after you present good work and then actually spending your money, leading you closer to a capital raise at a lower price for more dilution, doesn't sound like a great proposition for shareholders. So we sat back and said, okay, we need to get ourselves into this decarbonisation thematic and come up with a project into that area. So we went and started to scour a lot of projects, spent a few months looking at a lot of projects, a lot of walkaways. In November last year, we secured an option to earn up to 90% in the Carloning Rare Earths project, and that was a game changer, very cheap entry. So we had a market cap of circa $6 million at the time we made the investment decision, and it was a $60,000 decision for us to make. The reason we jumped into this project is we could actually go to site, go into an old quarry in the wheat belt, circa 3.5 hours drive out of Perth. It was quarried for feldspar and quartz. And so when they got to the outskirts of this pegmatitic body that they were mining, they just walked away because it was no longer valuable to them. But we can walk in there and see xenotime crystals, the rare earth crystals, outcropping in the quarry. So we said, okay, we're not looking for rare earths. They're actually there. We know they exist. It's just really how much and at what grade. So that was our investment decision, and we went in and we hit the ground running. So within 6 weeks, we'd negotiated land access agreements and we're on the ground and collecting our initial data sets. So that's drone magnetics, soil sampling, ground radiometrics. Got all of that information back, did some drill targeting and hit the ground within 4 months of doing the deal on the project for the maiden RC reverse circulation drilling program, which we completed in April this year. We rushed the top 40 metres of the first hole through the laboratory, so we weren't waiting that inordinate time that we see in the labs at the moment of anywhere up to 6 weeks for turnaround of our assays to know whether our thesis that from the quarry and the hard rock we actually went down into the wheat fields where it's oxidised and weathered granites and pegmatites and had a clay horizon with the rare earths in the clay horizon. The first drill hole spectacularly proved that we did. So in that hole, the key takeaway is the 12 metres grading 2,679 ppm in total rare earth and yttrium. And that also contains about 20% of those 4 heavy rare earths that are key in the value chain. So a really good association there. And those clays are just 8 metres from surface, so it puts us in a great situation to say, okay, we don't just have hard rock, we've actually got the clays. Why do we want the clays? Closer to surface, cheaper to drill, cheaper to get a resource, cheaper to mine, cheaper to process. So we've got 2 plays here. We've got the hard rock play and now we've got the clay play. And that was a real game changer for us when we released that about a week and a bit ago. Where do we go from here? Well, we get back into the paddock. We wait for our results to come through for the remainder of our drilling. And then instead of focusing on a small area like we did in our original program that was over an area of 80 metre spaced holes on 100 metre lines, we'll go back in at 4x400 and 4x200 to really get across those wheat paddocks very quickly and scope what is the potential scale and opportunity in the project. A really exciting time for us to focus on this car-learning asset, and I think it's allowed just to do one thing that is critical to the business, and that is since we announced this deal in November last year, we've over doubled our market cap. It's still micro, but believe me, the trading volumes are there and the interests of the investment community to support us in future capital raises is really strong. So a little bit of history on the Bull Run project. We'll just quickly run through some of the gold projects that we have in the business. Bull Run, it's in Oregon in the eastern US. This was a gold rush city akin to your Ballarat, Kalgoorlie, Southern Cross. But it's had no modern mining. Nothing's really happened there in a mining instance in the best part of 100 years. On our project, there has been one individual just go in and artisanally mine little bits of material at plus an ounce in a very narrow quartz vein. We took a step back, looked at some of the historical data. Newmont went in there in the 80s and did 3 holes, drilled 20 metres at 3.5 grams, but in the 80s that just wasn't good enough. They were looking for plus 7 gram ore bodies, and that was the last anyone looked at it. So we think this is a wonderful opportunity for an epithermal system in a jurisdiction that has not been touched. We've been on the ground, we've been developing our base data sets to really understand what the opportunity is and what we're going to do there once we get our permitting. So we've got drilling planned, we've got the permitting in place, and the Forest Service is not the quickest permitting body in the world, I will grant you that, but hopefully we'll get our permits by the end of this year and be drilling on this project. With this epithermal, we've got the opportunity for gold, copper and molybdenum, all of which we've seen in rock chip samples on the site. In the first year of existence post-IPO, we worked fairly hard on our gold projects in WA, and we saw nice results. Again, 23 metres at 3.8 at Redgate, just couldn't get the appetite of the market going. In a gold-strong market, these results will get wonderful support. So when we get the investment support and we can see that the market will reward good gold results, we've still got quality gold projects to go back and explore. At Redgate, the exploration that we did really unlocked the geological model. We could actually go, we modelled, went out and tested the model, drilled and got the results from the drilling that said that the model was right. We can see that we've got mineralisation over 800 metres in strike length. It's still open to the south, and we've got another opportunity across at Porphyry East where we could come in and do some drilling there where there's historic mineralisation as well. So a wonderful opportunity to look at these gold projects with fresh eyes in a nicer market in a better part of the cycle. At Middle Creek at Nullagine, it's a wonderful scene here. We're in a gold-endowed area that's been looked at and mined over decades. And we've got a package of ground between two big regional scale faults. And when you've got two big regional scale faults, you'll have multiple smaller faults that are plumbing the same ore fluid system. And our package has had zero drilling ever completed on it. The first work that we did was to get up on the ground and do some soil sampling. Post that, we got some anomalies, went up and did some trenching. And out of the trenches that we did, we saw gold popping up at surface in multiple trenches in these anomalies, with an outstanding result at Major 2 with 25 metres at just under a gram from surface. So if you start to think about the opportunity there, processing plants in the neighbourhood, it's a really right place for us to go back and explore. Last little gold project that we have is down just out of Kanowna Belle, just north of Kalgoorlie. Good location, all the right geological structures, and a new interp that we've done post the first drilling campaign that we did, where we think we've got the opportunity to chase the right structures for gold. But ESG, we'll go back to this topic, and everyone here today will be going and saying what their ESG credentials are. What we see as our opportunity to be a supplier of rare earths, ESG is a pillar of our way of operating. Importantly, the Carloning Rare Earth Project, it's close to rail. It's got bitumen roads to within 600 metres of the drill rig. We've got electricity to the doorstep of the farm. The sheep on the farm drink Shire water. So we've got all the ingredients, all the infrastructure that we need. We don't have to start building roads, building massive big diesel gensets off grid, going to solar to try and support those. We've got everything on our doorstep. It's a pretty rare opportunity to actually fit into that process. And again, if we actually think about being able to go from the mine to the product and have transparency, we're in a perfect case for it. So where do we sit? We're a critical minerals work program heavy company at the moment, so we're really looking at our rare earths at Carloning. We've got the maiden drilling done. We'll have our phase 2 drilling with that air core at the wide spacing to understand the scope and scale. We're also evaluating additional new projects. We believe within the company that we have the ability to take on another project in that critical minerals space. We'll also look at if we can get the permitting completed by the end of the year to drill in Eastern Oregon at Bull Run. So, just to leave you with a few things, who are we? We're motivated explorers that have got capacity and experience in developing projects. What do? At the moment, we're unlocking value for our shareholders through rare earth exploration. What is our story? We've had an exploration success. We've got a discovery of the clay-hosted rare earth deposit. Why invest? It's your leverage to an $11 million market cap in a growing, hungry space. And what you can expect is solid work programs on the ground completed within the next 3 months, and results coming up in another 6 months. So there's going to be a very strong news flow for the business. And last but definitely not least, I would just like to take a moment and say that everyone at Codrus Minerals is very aware that the explorers on this end of the microphone would not be able to do our job without the support and investment of all of you sitting in the audience today. So we thank you for it and look forward to seeing you at the booth to discuss the projects further.